3, 2, 1. All right, welcome everybody. First episode of, I don't even know what I'm going to call it yet. I once was going to go Tinley's Tonsil Tussle because it had 3 T's, but I've...
Michelin Grubby Show. That's what it's going to be called.
Okay, right now I'm joined by Matt Grubb, who is, what would you like to be known as?
I guess I'm the owner of the Mount Gambier Grappling Club. And the head coach.
I guess, new. Now, how long have you been in Mount Gambier, South Australia?
I've lived here my whole life.
Okay.
I was born here back in 1981.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I'm an old dude. And lived my whole life here. I didn't really get out of the place until I was in my mid to late 20s. Travelled around Australia a bit, but really to get overseas, I didn't do anything for years and years.
So it's that classic, it's a classic small town.
Oh, you don't know what's out there.
And it's a very, so if you live in Perth, it's your Bunbury. If you live in Sydney, I guess it's your Newcastle.
Yeah.
And all that sort of stuff. So it's that Mount Gambier, for anyone that doesn't know, is just that smaller place. It's the second biggest city in South Australia.
It's not saying much, no.
But yet we have
27,000 people.
And Adelaide has 1.7 million.
On a good day.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So it's always been a bit of a country sort of town. It's got that, we won't go into it too deep, but it's that rural drug problem, like that sort of.
Oh, people get stuck here.
Yeah.
And they get bored.
Yep.
And then they complain they got nothing to do, but they don't want to do anything.
Because it's a 5-hour drive to Adelaide or a $400,000 flight to Adelaide.
That's return.
Yeah.
Return.
Yeah. They are fixing that by dropping $30 off it.
Well, no, and they're going to cut flights because people were complaining that it was too expensive. So they're like, we just won't give you flights away.
Well, apparently they've reached a deal, and it is something like 25% of the seats. Keep in mind, it's like a 16-seat flight.
7-seat flight.
Yeah, and they're dropping $30 off it to Adelaide on the day of or 30 days out.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So if you get a last-minute decision that you just want to go to Adelaide for no reason.
Yeah, pretty much. So that's Mount Gambier, and you have started up a jiu-jitsu school, grappling club.
Yep.
And why has it taken this long? When did you get into it?
How far do you want to go back?
Oh, right back. Well, because has there ever been a grappling club in Mount Gambier before?
There's been martial arts, and I started here in a judo school.
Oh, yeah.
It was like a judo / Japanese jiu-jitsu, a lot of wrist locks, a lot of bowing and, that kind of stuff. But there was never any real submission grappling or Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It was only the fact that I started watching the UFC, and even that was by mistake.
That's everyone who's ever started any martial art ever.
Oh, especially in a small town. Still today, I'm sure there's people in Mount Gambier who don't know what the UFC is. That's
a fair point. How did you get it? Was it that old school style of I got a video from the video store? And
Yeah. So back when I was a kid, I played sports that my parents made me play, but it wasn't
ball sports.
Yeah, team sports. But I wasn't really into it until I was about 16. But when I was growing up, I was really into fake wrestling, like Hulk Hogan, WWE style. Yeah. So, I got out of that when I got into my mid-teens because that's not cool and that's not going to get you any girls.
No, you don't. Look, I'll say it right now. We're going to be very honest on this podcast. I still love it.
Yeah.
I just keep it secret because it doesn't get you as many girls as other stuff.
Yeah. So my cousin came to me one day and he's like, "Oh, Ken Shamrock. You'd remember Ken Shamrock.
Yeah,
World's Most Dangerous Man.
Yep, him versus Hoist Gracie, if you UFC 1, because I think a lot of people know that one. Yep. And if you don't know him, Ken Shamrock was also in the WWF, WWE. World's Most Dangerous Man.
World's Most Dangerous Man.
Yep, that was his name.
So he was in UFC 1 and my cousin came around. He was still really into wrestling. He's like, "Oh, Ken Shamrock's in a real fight." And I was like, "Well, I've got to see this." So we got this video from the video store. I had to go down and rent it because it was rated R, and he was too young. So we went down. And this is still VHS.
How old were you then?
Look, it was probably 98, 97, 98, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so you're 17.
Yeah, 17, 18. I must have been 18 because it was an R-rated video.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a note from my parents saying that I could get it. So
Was that...
That works sometimes in Mount Gambier. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, if you want to go get Friday the 13th or something like that, you go down there and you knew the people and you'd be like, "Oh, I want to get this." And they're like, "It's rated R. How old are you?" And it's like, "Oh, I'm 12. But my mum says it's okay. You can give her a call. So they'd ring up your mum and be like, "Your son's here trying to rent, Friday the 13th.
Pros and cons. We just talked about how bad it's living in a small town, and then the good things about living in a small town.
Yeah. Oh. Just depends which way you want to go with it.
Oh,
so we hired the video and took it home and we're having a look. And The first fight, if anyone's ever seen UFC 1, the first fight is this tall, gangly white guy in a pair of gi pants versus this big Samoan sumo wrestler whose art of martial arts was breaking bones. And we're like, hell yeah, like this little white guy is going to get his ass kicked. And that, there are no rules and all this kind of stuff, that you're just not allowed to eye gouge or fish hook, or I think you weren't allowed to groin strike at that time.
Oh, so some rules.
There was some rules. And anyway, this big sumo dude came rushing out, pushed him up against the cage, and this white kickboxer stepped back and head kicked him, and his tooth went flying out, landed on the desk, and we just sat there like, and they called the fight. They didn't know what to do because they didn't expect it to go that way.
Oh.
And so we're sitting there and, watched the next couple of fights, and then Hoist Gracie came on, and he was the member of the Gracie family, and, their pride and joy, and he came out and he was this tiny little white dude in this white gi, and he looked like he was going to get destroyed, and he won all 3 of his fights in under like 2 minutes. He killed Ken Shamrock in the second round.
Yeah.
And from there, I just fell in love with jiu-jitsu, and it took off. It's like the same story that everyone tells. It's like, I saw Hoist Gracie in UFC 1, and I was addicted. So, unless they're young like you, and then they probably saw the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, no, mine was, it was always on Main Event. Like ads were starting to play on Main Event. This is when I moved to Perth. In Darwin, it didn't exist because I grew up in Darwin and left when I was about 16, moved to Perth. And it didn't exist to me. Never saw it. It just, for some reason, never even crossed my mind ever. Then I was in Perth a couple of years. And I think I saw some like K1, which is like kickboxing sort of stuff. And it was like back when there was like, I don't know his name, but he was that massive Asian fella who was like 6.
Hong Man Choi.
Yeah, that one.
Yep.
Yeah, him. And it was like a lot of that. And I was like, oh, who's that guy? That's crazy. And then I just kind of disregarded it. But it's like I was only ever watching Main Event for like all the WWE pay-per-views or whatever it was. My mum would let me buy them. She was the best mum ever.
So for the record, you love the WWE.
Oh, I loved it. Man, this thing, I love it now. The reason why I love it is because it's athletic and it's like shit talking and acting and like promoting yourself and living larger than life.
Like the South Park version when they want to get into wrestling and all they want to do is talk. And
it's legitimately me.
Yep.
Like it is me. Like mildly athletic and then just a whole lot of shit talking. It's just that is it.
Let's not bring mild into it.
Mild like when you think it's spicy, but it's like those like mild salami. You don't even notice. Yeah. But I was just watching through a few of those, and UFC 111 popped up, and it was when Shane Carwin took on Frank Mir, and then there was Dan Hardy and GSP.
Yep,
we're gonna fight, and before that, in fact, I lied. The first time I ever saw it was, I think something popped up on Sports Center a couple of years ago when Frank Mir took on Brock Lesnar.
The first one, or
UFC 100.
Yeah,
because Brock Lesnar was the guy where I was like, oh, he's the wrestler guy, like he's a WWE guy.
Yeah.
And so it just popped up because it was more mainstream. Popped up at Sports Center, and I was like, oh, who's that other guy? And then I was like, that was my first sort of taste of like, I think there's something else out there.
Yeah.
But I just kind of ignored it. And then this like UFC 111 popped up a couple of years later, and I watched it, and I was just like, oh, I'll see how it goes because that Frank Mir was there, and I was like, oh, I recognize that guy, and then obviously he got murked.
Yeah.
He just got destroyed.
It was a 1 minute fight, one punch.
It was like if you could make a gorilla into more sort of like a robot. That's what Shane Carwin was like.
He had I think he still holds the record for the biggest hands in UFC ever.
Oh, it's insane. He's like a Rock'em Sock'em robot, but as a gorilla.
Yeah.
Like it was just insane. And he would do like little like 6-inch punches. Like, you know how Bruce Lee did the 1-inch punch or whatever?
Like Shane Carwin. Let's not get into Bruce Lee.
I know. But Shane Carwin, I reckon, could do the 1-inch punch. Like the way he would throw them. And he just murked Frank Mir. And I was like, oh no, this is crap. But there was one more fight to go, and it was Dan Hardy versus GSP.
Love that fight.
I did not know how good GSP was. For anyone that doesn't know, he's essentially like the Michael Jordan. Like
he's up there. He's like top 5.
He's Kobe. He's Kobe. He's very, very good. And he was taking on this guy with like red shorts, red mohawk. Yeah. Just he was like talking shit the whole time. And I was like, well, that guy is the guy I'm going for.
It was the Cockney accent, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's what works for me.
I love that sort of stuff. Yeah. The shit talking, the bravado, whatever it is. And then he got like whooped. GSP whooped him. But threw him in saw all these like submissions, and he just wouldn't tap.
Yeah.
He was like made of rubber. And of course, like, you're sitting there, you're watching it. I think I was like 17 at the time, and I was all like, "Yeah, I would have got out of that too. Yeah, I wouldn't have tapped to that either." But like the reason why I knew it was good is because obviously the commentators, Joe Rogan, all that, were going nuts about like how
about
amazing
him getting out.
Yeah, and that was the one where I went, "Oh, there's something out there. Like this sport's pretty cool." And my cousin had Isaac Tisdale, the Planet Smasher, that's his nickname, was doing cage fighting. Like this to our family, it was cage fighting.
Yeah,
like and he's been like a bit of the not the black sheep. He's just kind of had a tough upbringing. And my auntie, and it's that bad side of the family type thing.
You're not the bad side.
No. I'm part of that bad side.
Oh, okay.
But like he was just had a real rough upbringing. So when he was cage fighting, everyone's like, he's a bikie now. He's not. But it's like that's like everyone like goes, he probably sells drugs.
Everyone probably thinks that about us now.
Oh, without a doubt. And he was kind of had I think a few fights, but we all kind of just it's nothing, And then when I saw that, I messaged him because he trained in Perth.
Yeah.
And then that's what got me into it. He passed me on to that, and that's when I went to Fitness and Fight Centre.
Yeah.
Which weirdly enough did turn into a bikie clubhouse, but
these things tend to happen.
But that's what got me into it. But so you did it when you were like 17, 18, like you saw the first video.
Yeah, but it took me forever to get started.
Why?
I don't know. I was playing football and I had my whole social scene.
Were you playing Western Border League?
I was playing Western
You
Border.
playing Western Border League?
I used to play for East Gambier Football Club.
That's like the waffle, the sample of here.
So we used to be the second best league in South Australia. It's probably not anymore. It's dropped down. It used to have about 10 teams in it when I was playing, and now there's 5 because all the clubs just went. They said, "Oh no, it's too far to travel, so we're going to be in a Victorian one instead."
Oh, they just scattered.
Yeah. So it dropped down to 5 teams. So I reckon East is playing today, actually.
Semi-finals or something.
Semi-finals.
It's big here. Like it's really weird. Like in WA, waffle and that, which is one step down from the AFL. Very good, and it goes off. But like the grand final gets like, I mean, I could be wrong here, but the grand final gets something like 300 people.
Oh,
like
no. Our grand final's huge.
That's what I mean.
It's like a calendar event for Mount Gambier.
Because for Mount Gambier here, they've got the Pioneers for basketball, right? And so in a town of like 28,000 people or something like that, they play in Seabull, which is the one step under the NBL.
Yeah.
And they play against like these massive teams, and they pull like 800 people a week.
Now.
Easy.
Now.
Yeah.
Well, there were some dark days at the Ice House. Oh, there was like 20 people sitting up the top in the grandstands making out. Like,
oh, really?
They weren't even watching the basketball. They went there to get away from their parents.
Was that back in the day?
Yeah.
Because they've won like 5 out of the last 6 grand finals.
Because they were no
like
good
that.
for years. For years they were no good. And so no one was watching basketball. It kind of fell by the wayside. I think it was like the late 90s when basketball became really popular. And like you were trading basketball cards and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because my parents, basketball was my life. Like that's why I have 8 years of like training MMA, but like 3 years of skill.
Yeah.
Like because I was all basketball. I just spent my whole life trying to make the NBA. That's why I got into radio at like 26. A lot of people are in radio, like in my position, even younger type thing, because I didn't want anything else but basketball. Like I sucked. Like I got okay, but I sucked. And it was just, basketball was my life. And it was really weird because my parents used to talk about, cause especially in Perth and in Darwin, because they were originally from Perth as well, that like it was like Cal Bruton and the 90s.
Yeah, I remember him.
The 90s NBL.
Perth Wildcats.
Yeah, and it used to be like the biggest show. Like everyone would go down. It was amazing. And then it went through this lull where the NBL pretty much shut down for a year. They were like, well, we're done. We're going to lose a league. They lost teams. They got down to like 4 teams. And that was like, I'm going to say, as early as 5 years ago, the NBL was dead. Basketball was nothing. Like you couldn't find jerseys anywhere. 10 years ago, to find an NBA jersey somewhere was like, unless it was like an Andrew Bogut jersey, which you'd get at like Kmart or something, you could not get anything anywhere. Now,
it's blown up again.
It's blown up again. I mean,
LeBron.
Oh yeah, all the Australians in the NBL, in the NBA and college. That was the thing too. Like in Darwin, when I grew up, like there was one kid that I think went to an American college because that's the thing. You play junior basketball and then you get a scholarship somewhere in America and you go play college, and that's like the best thing you do. Maybe you come back, maybe play the NBL, but you really want to go to college, live that life and all that sort of stuff. We had like one kid go in Darwin. Now there's players that don't even make the state side that are going. Yeah, and keep in mind. NT gets, when we do nationals, we play against other states, we lose by like 100 to like Victoria. Like we get belted.
So you were what, like 16? And you want to be an NBA star?
Yeah, that was my thing.
And what age did you work out that you were white and short?
Oh, I worked that out early, but if you haven't already like noticed, I've got a little bit of a small ego.
It's not the ego, it's the obliviousness to the physical features.
But that was the thing. It was like, I was like, oh, it actually made me, it's funny, because it actually made me quite bitter, basketball by the end. And that's when I decided to quit. Because I was always told as a kid, like, if you work hard, you can get there. And I worked harder than anybody.
It's a fine line.
Oh.
It's a fine line. I mean, there's some physical attributes you've got to have. When Ben Simmons is a point guard in the NBA.
And he's 6'10". Yeah, like there was that. Look, I'm about 6 foot with shoes on. Just play basketball with shoes on. And
if you're 6 foot, that works for me because that makes me about 5'11". And I'm happy with that. I'll take 5'11".
But that was the thing. It's like I kept trying, and it's like I was struggling to make teams in Darwin, which sucked. And it's like, but I was still trying to do it. I'd spend like 2 hours a day after school shooting. I'd work harder than anybody. And it's like, it helped me a little bit, but my friends were doing copious amounts of drugs and getting drunk the night before, showing up to training and smashing me or playing more minutes. And I like ran my head into a wall for like 10 years. Like that was like.
So is that the key? Is the message for the kids out there is do copious amount of drugs?
Quit early.
Oh,
quit. No, what it is, it's quite funny because it's like I'm quite harsh on basketball because I go like, it taught me nothing. Like I can put a ball in a hole now, but what does that teach me? You know what it teaches me? It teaches me shit like how to put up with stuff, like all resilience and all that sort of shit. Because it's like I wasn't part of that era where everyone got a trophy. I was part of that era where I got cut early.
Oh yeah.
Like they didn't wait till the end of training to cut me. They cut me like mid drill. They're like, you're not getting this. See you later. Yeah. You know, and it's made me tougher. Obviously, I'm a bit of a bully to some of the younger guys, but it's only because I want them to go through that because
they need it.
It's way too nice to everyone.
Yeah,
everyone's way too nice, and that's anything. Yeah. Ball sport. You'd already know. You got kids playing soccer.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure everyone gets the same amount of minutes.
They don't keep score in so my kids are in under 6 and under 8s. And they don't keep scoring either of those games.
What is soccer? There's probably just no score.
No, in kids soccer. Oh no, it's 32-12.
Oh really?
Yeah. There's like one team that will be dominant, or one player who just runs in between all these other little kids that are like training cones, and then kicks a goal, runs down with his shirt over his head, and doing the Cristiano Ronaldo. And my kids are, I mean, I get them out there to do some sport, but they're not really that interested at the moment. My boy's like me. He's kind of...
How old?
So the eldest one's 8.
So you got two...
I got 2 boys and 2 girls now.
Yep.
So I'm repopulating Mount Gambier one child at a time.
I have noticed every girl I've ever talked to here has at least one baby.
Yeah, because they've probably already met me. That was the problem. Yeah. No, look, I found out I was fertile. But yeah, no, so I've got 4 kids now. My youngest is she's just over 6 months.
Yeah, and not playing soccer yet?
I mean, she kicks it. She's pretty good, but I don't know if I want to get her out there into competitive areas.
So your oldest, 8?
8, yeah. And they don't keep score. And he's a bit of a dreamer. He's a bit like me. He likes to read, and he plays his video games and stuff like that, and I try and limit that as much as possible. But he'd much rather write a book or create a comic or make a movie. He makes movies and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, he's creative. I think he'll probably go down some path that way.
That's the thing that my parents... So, I obviously get to work in radio and do all this, media stuff, and just these odd jobs that no one even knows how to get into, how to do, and all this sort of shit, like ring announcing,
I was talking to Katie about that. So my partner Katie, I was talking to her about that the other day. I was like, Mitchell really is a bit of an entrepreneur. Like, he's got a radio gig, and he's a ring announcer, And then he does stand-up comedy, and he's doing podcasting. And it's like you've just got all these little things going on. It's all kind of around the same entertainment bubble.
It comes back to at the end of the day. I can spin it and be like, I've just always, wanted to. Why not me? But it's my parents.
Which voice was that? Which impersonation was that?
It was actually me.
Because it sounds like every other impersonation you've ever done.
Yes, I'm not very good at impersonating. But no, it comes back down to my parents because they allowed me to do that. Yeah. Like I've met friends, even Michael, who's my co-host, his parents were like proper parents.
Yeah.
I'm not saying my parents were amazing, but it's like his parents were like, all right, you're 18. Like, go get a job now. Like, okay, go move out. Okay, what are your grades? Okay, go study commerce. Okay, cool. You got a job? All right, full time? Great. Go get a house. Like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Like, we need people like that so that I can do shit like this.
Exactly.
Okay, and I used to say, like, my biggest fear in life was to have a real job.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's because I think I'm better than that. I think it's because I can't do it. Like, I just... Someone else
not built for it.
No, someone else can put their head down and battle through, and I'm more envious of them that they can do that.
Don't be.
Where
I've done both.
It's just not like my mum had like a hell tough upbringing, like alcoholic dad. Yep. Like mum died young. She had to look after her sister at like 13, like all that sort of stuff. She's one of those ladies that just has worked like a job for like 30 years in accounts and just kind of works like 9 to 5 and then comes home, makes dinner, does the washing.
Dude, this is the perfect segue.
Oh.
Because this is how I got to this. Because, like, unlike your parents, like, my parents, amazing parents. Like, they did the best they could, but they're very closed-minded. They've come from a few different places, but in reality, my mum's from Mumbanna, which is 20 minutes out of town, which has a population of 15 people. They didn't have a swimming pool. They used to go swim in the creek out the back and stuff like that.
It's funny when it's regionals making fun of a smaller regional.
Oh yeah. That's who we pick on.
Yeah, there's always someone to pick on.
When you're in a dirt track down the road.
When you're in a small town, there's always someone else to pick on.
Yeah, it's just a town with 15 people. But and then my dad came to Mount Gambier and obviously met up with my mum, and they had me when they were in their 30s. But
they waited a long time.
Yeah. But then, well, compared to me,
yeah.
But they were stuck in that small town mentality from probably birth, and like my dad, his old man passed away early, and he used to run pubs and stuff like that. So he was brought up to be like that worker and to go, get that job in an office and make your money and all this kind of stuff. And so that flowed through to him. Like I was never as a kid asked, "What do you want to do?" It was always like, you need to become an accountant, and you need to get married, and you need to get a house, and you have children, and you put money away, and
which is funny that we look at that as like we always look at that as like my parents drew that into me. It's like they I don't think they knew any better.
No.
Like I think they thought they were doing the right thing.
100%, and still do.
Yeah.
Like, but I was just the kid that you can go one or two ways.
Do you have any siblings?
No, I was an only child.
Oh, okay.
Not by choice. It's just the way things turned out. But I never ended up getting a sibling. So everything was all about
like
me.
Parents tried?
Yeah, they tried.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. I think my mother lost a child before full term.
Is that normally it's hard to get a child. Normally, once you've got one, there's not as many struggles.
Well,
with
she
that
would have
stuff.
been a bit older by then. Like she was in her mid-30s by then. And I think I don't know the science behind it, but I think once you get to a certain age, it becomes a lot tougher for.
Tune in next week for middle-aged women.
Exactly.
Prenatal.
By then, I would have read up on it. I'll be able to give you all the details. So I mean, I was always told to go do these things, and I did for the longest time. Like in school, I studied. I finished up school and I got a job. I actually left high school with 2 weeks before exams. I went and got a job. Look, my parents had been on and off for a few years, and it was never a bad thing. It was just the way they were, and I'd had enough. I didn't want to be a part of that school system anymore, and so I went out and got myself a job, and I started working in transport and deliveries, and I was driving a truck around.
So like a 17, 18?
Yeah, this is about 17. I wasn't old enough to drink. And so I'd be sent out with a little truck and all these fridges and air conditioners and stuff like that, and I'd be told to go out and deliver them to shops. And we didn't have forklifts or anything back then. Like, it's not like this is back in the 20s with horse and cart. It was just it was 15, 20
But
years ago.
this is the funny thing that people might not get is like, say even Perth or capital city, wherever you are, 2018, Mount Gambier is 2008. Like now, like we're like 10 years, 20 years behind. It's weird. Like, yeah, there's still some other stuff, but it's like the way people think, some of the equipment they use.
Oh.
Even now, I'm like, oh.
But even like these days, if you got a carton that's 5 kilos, then it's got a little sign on it so that you have to lift it with a partner and stuff like that.
And bend your knees.
So I was lifting, 100 kilo fridges off the back of these trucks, and I did that for a bit, and then I progressed up the levels, and but I was spending most of my time. Like, I wasn't even playing football at that stage. I'd given up football. I'd put on a heap of weight. I think I got up. My worst was I was probably 19 years old, and I got up to about 115 kilos.
Yeah, because you got super fat.
I was super
I didn't
fat.
even notice that when you put that up the other day. You put up a photo. And it was all like, jiu-jitsu changes your life and all that sort of stuff. And it was like you standing next to like a fat guy. And I was like, who is that guy?
I wasn't standing next to him. I was the fat guy.
It was insane.
I was the guy inside the fat guy.
You were such a large man.
Yeah. I was about 115 kilos. And, it was just, you'd go to work from 9 to 5 each day, and then you'd go drink on Friday night and Saturday night. And
it was a physical job, yeah?
It was a physical job, but, I mean...
Not enough.
But at the same time, like, I was living on my own at 18, and I'm doing a full job, so now I get to pick what I eat and all this kind of stuff. So, you pull over on the side of the road and you get a pie. And
I did that when I lived with my mates because I had these like best mates in Darwin. Then we moved down to Perth with my parents. They all wanted to, because the whole thing is to get out of Darwin. It's like, man, you want to get out. And then they came to live with me in like 2015 or something. We all moved out and lived so I finally got to do that, like, me and my 4 mates all living in the same house. And it was amazing. But it was like, because I was still like health conscious because I was doing like personal training and all that sort of stuff. I was like chicken and salad. My mate, I remember he had like Red Rooster one night, KFC the next night, McDonald's the night after that. I was like, you are going to die. But the problem with that is he looks normal. Like, he looks like a normal guy, normal fit guy. Like, girls would find him attractive and in fact do. And he's like, if you look at his body, you go like, okay, he's not ripped, but you go, he's fine.
Yeah.
But it's like, he ate that shit every night.
Yeah.
Every night. I'm like, how are you not dead?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, when you're 18, live by yourself, you're like, ah.
Oh, and I wasn't allowed like takeaway. Like, every now and then we'd get fish and chips and stuff. But
is that the thing? Do you reckon it's because you weren't allowed?
I don't know. Like, even then, like, I didn't eat healthy. My parents didn't feed me healthy. They just didn't know. Like, the stuff they were feeding me it should have been good, wholesome food, but in reality, it was like covered in all these fats and like,
Oh, but it's even like to this day, like you think about some of the stuff you had in your lunch or whatever it is, or even the fact that you have like ham sandwiches.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Yeah. The
like,
carcinogen.
Processed meat, white bread.
Yeah.
Like, but now, for some reason, we're like, before we did MMA sparring on Friday night, I was like, I didn't have enough time to make actual food. So I was like, I have some sliced ham.
Yeah.
And I was like, put that in a roll. I haven't eaten that in like 10 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, bread. Like, the bread just like threw my whole body off.
It was your first carb in a year.
Oh, it was insane. And it's like, oh, that's actually what it does to you.
Yeah.
We're just used to it. Like, because if you eat it all the time. And so,
yeah, so I got really big and, and I was working this job and I worked up my way up, and then I slowly started to get into the office work, and the business paid for me to go to university.
So was it a big business? Or was it...
Yeah, so I worked for Scott's Transport, which is, like, in Mount Gambier, like, Alan Scott was Donald Trump. Like, he was the shit. He ran everything. I mean, there's a race course named after him in Adelaide. And he was like the #1 ticket holder for the Port Adelaide Football Club. He helped bring them into the AFL and things like that. Like, he was a big deal. He had political influence. He was the man. He was a multi-millionaire. He was one of the richest men in Australia. And he started off with one truck, and then he built this business that was Australia-wide.
Jeez.
So I got in with that. It was through connections. It wasn't about what I knew. It was about who I knew. My father was his number 2.
Oh,
so
right.
yeah, he was the CEO.
Is that why you ended up doing that job? Was your dad like, hurry up?
I think he wanted me to get into it and follow his steps.
Because my dad had like something similar. He had a hose, like oil rig fittings business, and it started in Perth. And he's actually like a main like hero of mine in terms of he started up a business in Perth with a partner, and that they kind of hit rock bottom, and the partner ran off. This is his business partner, ran off with all like the good cuts, the best things they had left, and just pissed off. And Dad had like heaps of people to pay and all this sort of stuff, but he didn't want to declare bankruptcy because to him, he said that was the easy way out. So he made sure he called all of his suppliers and said, I can't pay you now or even next year or even the year after. He's like, but I guarantee, he's like, I will pay you back every cent. He's like, I don't care how long it takes. And then they were weirdly, because I guess it was back like at least 20 years ago, they were like, okay.
But he must have had some kind of relationship with them for him to do that for him.
Then so we move up to Darwin because it was just at that time cheaper and everything. And he builds this company like right up, then opens like another franchise of it in Perth.
Yeah.
Builds that up, sells it all for like $5-6 million.
Oh,
and
wow.
it's like, and then he like kicks a little extra to the guys that he owed money to a long time ago.
Look at us, children of privilege.
Well, but that's what I mean. It was like that same sort of thing. So Dad always wanted me to get, and before he sold it, Dad always wanted me to get into that. He didn't push me, but he always wanted to be, and weirdly, that's where chasing basketball came from. Because I almost had this like, I can fall back on that job. You know, it was that kind of thing.
The safety net.
Yeah, and I think I didn't take school as serious for that reason. And then, hey, he sold it, and then I couldn't fall back on it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it was bad. But he kind of always wanted me to do it. And I think I did a few times of like work experience.
Yeah.
Like when I went to Darwin, and he still, when I went to Perth, he still had the one in Darwin. We used that as work experience for high school, just so I could go up and see my friends. So like things like that. And he was like, you're not. He's like, you might be a salesman. Yeah. He's like, but you're not going to work in the workshop.
No, we're not going to sit you down behind a desk.
Yeah, you're definitely not going to pick shit up because it's like if I don't want to do something, I'm very lazy. And
I've noticed that in training.
Yep. And if I'm not like, that's why I have to talk so much shit.
Yeah.
Because if I don't talk shit, it doesn't motivate me.
Yeah, you got to have
that's
your
actually,
back against the wall.
That's actually a legitimate serious point because a lot of the guys that we train with at the club they're learning. So they're not there.
Most of them only been there since January.
Without a doubt.
Never trained before.
But they're still guys. They're still men and there's a lot of women there too, but they still like have competitive blood in their veins. So it's like for me to get anything of value a lot of times out of them, I've got to talk some shit.
Make them angry.
Yeah, and it's great, and I love it. But that sort of stuff, and it's funny because my dad wanted me to get into that business, and I was just like, I'm probably not going to be a salesman because there's a story later on I'll talk about salesman where I noticed I have a heart because I had to sell. You know those people that stand in the middle of shopping centers and try to like flog raffle tickets or whatever?
Yeah.
I've done that.
Yeah.
And I did that for 1 month and I quit.
Yeah.
I just went, when we started like, you're not ripping off people, but when you start like there's a little old lady and you got a little spiel that you tell her and all that sort of shit.
Dude, I know exactly what you mean.
I could not. Like, don't get me wrong, I've done a lot of bad things in my life and I continue to do them without thinking. Like, I've done some shitty things in my life, but that was the moment where I was like, I might have a heart.
Yeah.
I might, because it got to the point where I was like, hey guys, I can't do this because all we do is take money off pensioners.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm out. And so I couldn't be a salesman, too lazy to lift shit in a warehouse. Dad was like, hey, probably go chase your dreams. Like,
that's perfect.
Maybe that'll work.
See, that was the opposite to what I got. I remember I was probably 14 at the time, and I was away on a holiday, and I came back, and I said to my parents, I want to start boxing, and I want to learn to play the guitar. And they're like, nah, that's not a good idea. That's not going to get you anywhere.
Really?
And they didn't want to get me into boxing. They thought it was too dangerous. So I didn't do it.
That's
and then
crazy.
That's when I got into football because my dad was a football player. And
do you look at that? Do you look at martial arts and wish you got in earlier, or are you glad
100%,
it happened the way it happened?
100%. And that's why I push the kids' classes and the female aspect of it so hard because those people aren't getting into it at a young age. And it's never been here. We've got karate schools, and God bless them, they do what they do.
I did them all.
Yeah.
I did the karate schools and broke wood and won some comps with I don't know how, but they were like points.
Yeah,
but
they weren't Carter. You weren't flowing.
Oh, I did that as well.
Yeah.
I think that stuff of karate for kids is good. However, you can just do that in jiu-jitsu and learn a real skill.
Yeah.
And learn discipline and honor and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's the best thing that comes out of those traditional martial arts is the discipline.
Like, because they are not all bad. Like, we always bash karate.
Yeah.
Both physically and with word.
Wow, look, some of those dudes, they're tough. I mean, you look at those Kokushin guys, and they fight hard. It's just a limited rule set.
But that's the thing. Have you noticed that whenever you talk to someone about karate and about like, oh, this karate sucks or that karate sucks, the more they go, well, what about this one?
Mm-hmm.
It's when they're, well, that one's a little bit more real.
Yeah.
What about this one? Well, that one's a little bit more real. Like
Yeah.
when people start going like, oh, what about Taekwondo?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, they actually kick.
They do, and I think Em will even tell you. Em's one of our students. She's competing for nationals in Taekwondo.
And a cop and the biggest gangster I've ever seen in my life.
Is
We did a
definitely a
put
gangster.
me to sleep for this like self-defense video. She's like, I want to try that. And she nearly died, and it was the coolest thing ever.
She didn't go out pretty. I'll give her that. Like there was coughing and spluttering.
Oh, she sounded like she was
rolling back.
Yeah.
and it was ugly. That video won't be.
It got
won't
me
be
hard.
getting out. It got you hard, did it? The more you know. No wonder you're in jiu-jitsu.
But yeah, Taekwondo, she's a champ in Taekwondo.
But she's been coming and training Muay Thai with us. At the gym, we've got a Muay Thai coach there, and she was like, "Oh, I need to get out of this Taekwondo stuff." Like, I think she started to see the light. Like, for learning how to kick and be an athletic and spin and all that, it's amazing.
Oh, she's got
But it's
she's got
point
amazing
dexterity and flexibility.
And I think
all
it
that.
helps and it's all that sort of stuff. And she teaches kids, and I think that stuff's fine. Even if she's teaching kids, right, in Taekwondo, and then that kid goes, I'm the best, or whatever. And you go, oh,
You're the best at Taekwondo.
Maybe come over here, kick him really hard in the head, and then go like, oh, well, you're not the best. So keep learning this. But if you want to actually fight one day, here, come over here. Like, I don't mind that sort of style of it. But even Muay Thai, as badass as a lot of Muay Thai guys are, the stance is a little bit different and little things like that.
Yeah, I had that discussion with Tom last night because we did some MMA training with him, and
Tommy Castleman, people that don't know, is how many pro fights he had?
I think he's had 3.
Yeah, he's a very good Muay Thai guy in Mount Gambier, and he seems like the one guy that's like a staple. Like he's like. There's a lot of people that come and go or say like, oh, I'm the Muay Thai guy or I'm the Muay Thai guy. He's just the one that he's just no nonsense.
Yeah, and he's another guy that he was training a while ago and then stopped and put on a ton of weight. Like he was huge.
Oh, he got super fat. You guys had like a how fat have I been off?
It was like that movie Just Friends with Ryan Reynolds when he's wearing the fat suit at the start.
It was
and he
hilarious.
comes back ripped. Yeah.
Both you two.
Yeah.
Absolute fatties.
Yeah.
Now.
And now look at me. I'm like Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool. But we were training last night, and I was saying about his stance because Muay Thai is a straight-on stance because you need to whip those kicks around. And I said that if you get into MMA, you're going to have to change that stance up because you're going to get taken down all day.
And how many times did it happen?
It got taken down a lot, especially off leg kicks.
But that's why we kept doing it against him because I am, and I've said this before, in Perth and in Australia, I'm a horrendously poor wrestler. But here, I'm the wrestler, which is so funny. It's great because I've just been bashed my whole life in wrestling, and to finally be able to hand it out and pass it down the line is amazing. But every time he'd throw like a leg kick, I was like, I'm just going to take him down.
You become a wrestler real quick when they start throwing leg kicks. Yeah.
Especially when he's like, I like how we wanted shin pads, and he's like, nah, I don't. That's cool. And I'm like, we're not worried about you. We're worried about us.
Yeah. We want some protection on those legs when they hit us.
He's like, nah, it's cool. But yeah, the whole Muay Thai stance is different. But that's a lot of anyone knowing martial arts. Like, I think the real problem of people getting into MMA, and it's exactly what I did. I said, I'm not going to get into MMA. This when I was 17, 18. And I went, I'm not going to get into MMA. I'm going to learn jiu-jitsu first. I'm going to learn 2 years of jiu-jitsu, get that base, then do MMA. That's silly. Like, it does seem like a good idea. We go, I'm going to get this base. But it's like, you may as well learn MMA, like a lot of aspects of MMA, unless you come from that background.
Yeah, it's different people have different opinions on it because you can be like that new style of MMA fighter that's come in and they learn MMA as a sport. So they're learning everything all at once and it blends it all together. But you're never going to really be an expert at any one thing. You're not going to have your style. You're going to have an MMA style.
I think So I learnt jiu-jitsu first. That was my thing. I knew a bit of boxing because everyone fucking thinks they can fight. It's just what you do. You think you can box. For some reason, it's just natural. Everyone thinks they can throw a punch. And so I did boxing on and off and was going to have an amateur fight when I was like 15. Like all that sort of stuff. Didn't end up happening, and I kind of put it away for a bit. And then I did jiu-jitsu for about a year and a half because that was the hardest thing for me to learn. And then I ended up starting to put it all together. Now, my best aspects, like if someone was like, what, this MMA fight, what are you going to do? I would be like, well, I want to box. But then if it goes to the ground, I have jiu-jitsu.
That's exactly what I said to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you were going to take that amateur fight. I was like, oh, we don't want to play on the bottom just yet. We want to stand back, and we just want to, because it was against a dude that had 20 weeks training.
Yes.
That's it. It was what was it called?
Wimp to Warrior.
Wimp to Warrior. So regular Joe comes in and he takes on the champion in the main event of an amateur card.
I was going to ring announce the same card. You
were very excited by it.
It's never been done before. That's my whole thing.
Are you sure?
100%.
I know fights in the States where, like, Boogie, one of my mates from the States, he had a fighter all teed up, and the guy pulled out with 20 minutes to go, and so they found some guy out in the crowd who'd been drinking all night, and they're like, "Do you want to fight?" And he's
that
like,
is the wild, wild west days of MMA. Perth.
No, this is 4 years ago.
Oh, really? That's insane. But even like Perth, like I'll go 8 years ago. Similar.
Yeah.
Like as much as it's grown, like everyone looks at the UFC and goes, oh, it's grown so much. It's like you have no idea. Go look at local MMA, see how much that's grown.
Yeah.
That's gone from like, oh, we just put some rope up and we thought, yeah. And then now it's like there's a commission.
Yeah.
And it's like,
well, sometimes there's a commission.
South Australia, I don't know, Adelaide doesn't even really have a commission. What they do with their sports commission for when Eternal MMA, the one that I ring announce for, when they go to Adelaide, the state outsources the commission. So what it is it's a karate commission.
Yeah.
So the ones that do karate tournaments, and they just go like, yeah, but we've done MMA events before, and I know I have to go back to Adelaide, and they'll probably hear this, and I don't care. But that's probably has a direct correlation with the fact that when Diamondback did their fights last week, I think Shane Mitchell and that were in there, there was a fight between Greg Adzori and I think it's Ethan Dunham. Close fight, unanimous decision. You know, sometimes it just goes that way. Maybe it's 50-45. The scorecards were 50-35.
I can't even work out what a 50-35 is.
What is that, like 10-7? For 5 rounds.
10-6.
You'd be dead.
10-6 for 5 rounds.
You'd be literally dead.
That means you'd have to get knocked down about 17 times in each round.
No, your math is off. 7 times 5, 35.
No. Yeah. I was thinking 6 times 6 is 36. So I wasn't quite there.
But yeah, that would not happen for anyone that doesn't really know MMA. Like, if me and Grubby are doing an MMA round and he beats me up and he wins, it's like 10-9. If you really put a beating on me, you know, maybe I get cut. You just really
to
throwing
the point
it
of
down.
almost a stoppage.
Yep, 10-8. 10-7 would have to be like people are looking at the ref like, what is going on? Stop this.
It's like that Simpsons where
he's already dead.
Yeah. Just start punching him. He's already dead.
So to have 5 rounds of that would be illegal.
Oh, 100%.
Like it would not be the case.
In saying that, I mean, I had my amateur fight in Victoria and amateur MMA, and we got ready in the same area as my opponent. And a couple of guys came up and checked on me beforehand, and I wrapped my own hands. There was no checking of the wraps, so I could have put plaster or whatever I wanted in there. It would have been fine. And then they gave me the gear from the fight before me to chuck on, so shin pads and gloves. And we go out there and we fight. And I got the win by knockout. I was very lucky in the second round. And then it was probably, I don't know, an hour later, I was having a beer with a couple of my mates from Melbourne that came to watch me. And some guy comes up to me and goes, oh, did we get the commission to sign off your medical? And I'm like, nah, dude, I haven't seen anyone. And they're like, can you go do that now? And I was like, the fight's been over for an hour. I'm dressed in my civvies now. Yeah, but sure. So I went and got my little booklet signed to say that they checked me before the fight and I was all good to fight. So,
well, that's insane because that was even my thought process with that Wimp to Warrior card where I was going to ring announce it anyway. And then Steve Steve Kennedy, my coach in Perth, was like, "Oh, do you want to take this fight? Like, we've always been talking about getting you a fight one day." Because I've just been super casual about it all.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "What about now? Do you just want to step in for me? Someone's pulled out." I was like, "Yep." And then it was like my whole brain is like impulse. So it's all like, "Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, that's sick. Yeah." I always say yes, ask questions later. That's how I ended up in everything I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Type thing. But I also overthink shit and go, "Is that even allowed?" But it's like, I'm not going to ask those questions because...
No, that might mean it's a no and then you can't do it.
But that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So, but also a bit of me is like, I'm always a real stickler for like what we're doing right now. Like we're in a studio that I do for my radio show. And I'm like, I didn't ask anybody. But it's like, I always think about stuff like that where I go, was I supposed to ask someone? Like, but I do it anyway.
What's that old saying? It's always easy to ask for forgiveness than
permission.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is, you know what's hilarious about that? The guys that got me this job, like all the way back in Perth, the guy that runs Triple M in Melbourne. So he runs all Triple M's, which is whatever your 5SE was here and just any mixed 94.5 in Perth, all that sort of stuff. He runs it all. And his advice to me and Michael, who's my radio co-host, was just like that. Was just like, it is easier to ask for forgiveness and
make
permission.
it memorable.
Oh, and I've done that ever since. Ever since I've just kind of gone, you know what? I'm just going to say yes, ask questions later, figure it out.
And once again, we're coming back in a circle because I think that like we left off, I was working for a big business and I was sitting in an office all day and I started doing my accounting degree. And then I did the whole thing. I got married and I had a child, but my child was born real early. He was born at 31 weeks.
So what's that? How many months is that?
Dude, I've got no idea.
But that's what?
It's 10 weeks early.
Oh, so that's a long time.
Yeah, it's real early. They don't let you stay in Mount Gambier for that. You have to go to Women's and Children's. So he got flown up to there when he was born. Because we went in, we just thought it was false labour, and then they were actually going to take my wife at the time to Adelaide. And
because he's fine, isn't he?
He's fine now.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a small kid, but he's always going to be a small kid. And
Yeah.
I'm not huge. She wasn't huge.
Yeah.
So, but he got flown up there. He was born at 3 pounds something. So that's like 1.5 kilos. He was in the palm of my hand. He was like a tiny little baby. And but the thing was that they were going to take my wife to Adelaide to stop the birth continuing on. They wanted to stop the labour.
Can they do that?
They can. They give them drugs and it
like
shuts it down. And it's like, yeah, we want to hold this off for a bit
Little
longer.
glue.
Yeah.
Little glue in there.
Yeah. So, but then the flight got here and
It's Rex. You can't cancel that stuff.
No. This is the Royal Flying Doctors. they would have cancelled it.
It would have been delayed.
Bit foggy. Yeah.
It would have been delayed. They're like, oh, guys, we'd love to, but the pilot just had a sandwich.
Yeah. But they did the check, like the internal check, and they're like, oh, shit, we got a baby coming.
Oh, like it was too late.
It was too late. Like the head was starting to come out. So luckily they didn't try and put it back on the plane.
Put it back in.
And so he got delivered down here. He got flown to Adelaide. And we were in NICU, which is like the premature birth thing for 6 weeks living up there. And he almost died on the table as well when they were up there. Like this was probably 3 weeks in.
Was he in a little oxygen tent? And all that
Yeah,
sort of
like
stuff?
not in the tent, but like in a little cubed area.
Yep.
And so I was doing, this was all going on while I'm in the midst of study for university. Like I was doing an accounting degree.
Oh, so you ended up going to uni?
No, I did it offline. So I was
okay.
working like a full-time job, 40 hours a week, and then I was studying after hours,
Jeez.
like to further my progress in a job that I didn't even really want to do. Like I was trying to follow my father's
It's
dream.
what everyone does.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you fall into it. But then you want to be because your parents always say, just be the best at whatever you do. If you're the janitor, be the best janitor.
I don't follow that thought process anymore. But yeah, so I went to do exams and I couldn't because I was up in NICU, and I rang him and said, look, can I get an extension on this? You know, I've had my child. He came early. We're stuck in Adelaide. You know, I'm living up here at the moment and I'm going to the hospital every day. And they said, nah, you're going to have to repeat next year.
What?
And I was like, are you kidding me? And they're like, no, we don't really do that, you see. And I'm like, but I'm a paying customer. And they're like, yeah, but you're a student. Like, we're more of a research facility now. So this is like Deakin University. This is one of the bigger universities.
Wow.
And they're like, so, you know, we don't really care. They legit said these words to me over the phone. I was like
the words, I don't really care.
Well, it was basically that. It was like, you know, we're not worried about your problems. You can just come back and pay for an extra year of university. And I was like, done with that. I had like 5 credits to go for 3 majors. And so I continued on with my job, and I kept on progressing up, and I ended up getting poached by one of the a sister company, and I worked in the fuel industry, like the oil industry, and I was running. At the time, it was Scott's Agencies locally, which was like the fuel side of things. And then it got bought out by Caltex, and I started working for a big national corporation. I was running things down here.
So were you like a manager type of?
I was like the Southeast Depot manager, and I helped out with a couple of the
Was
other
it like one of
depots.
those good money jobs?
Oh, great money.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah. Look, it was the hardest few years of my life, like mentally, dealing with people in that industry. And I hated myself every second, because during this whole time, I started to go from the old school way of thinking, the way I'd been brought up by my parents my whole life. And like, when 9/11 happened, I was like pro George Bush. I was like, yeah, let's go over there and get these guys. Like, this is bad, the Patriot and all this kind of stuff.
They went political real quick.
Yeah. I didn't know where we were meant to be going.
Like, I was doing this job, my dad, and 9/11 was an inside job.
But then, look, we can go down that path if you want. I do come from a 10th planet school, so flat Earth and all that kind of stuff.
Please no.
But I had a bit of a change in life during all those years, and to cut it down real short, like I started to open up my eyes to a lot of things, especially when it came to healthy eating and.
So you were still fatty then?
Like I'd lost a fair bit of weight. Oh, I mean, I was still probably a good 15, 20 kilos heavier than I am now.
And how old were your kids?
So at this stage, my boy was probably 4. And my daughter was 2, and then I had
These all planned kids?
The first 2 were, yeah, for sure. The third one, not so much. This was at the end of my marriage, and
you were like, let's have a baby to save it.
No, it kind of just happened, and we were trying to save the marriage for sure. We were doing the counselling and all that kind of stuff. Oh,
really?
Yeah, I've been down all that.
How long were you married for?
I was married for 7 years, and it's so cliche. We got to the 7-year mark, and we just couldn't do it anymore.
7 year itch.
And like, there was a lot going on. And
I have that, but at the end of year. So every year I've had a lot of girlfriends for 1 year.
I can't believe that anyone put up with you that long.
Oh no, without a doubt. And I just get to the point, and I'm like, it's the same shit. Yep. I'm really bad like that. I can't stick with shit.
Yep.
Very bad. So 7 years.
7 years, and so we had 3 kids together, and we separated, and it didn't end well, as it probably doesn't when you've been together 7 years and you got 3 kids together. And
is it good now?
No, we don't really talk unless it's through text message, and it's only really about the kids. So it's something I'd love for that one day to.
How long ago? How long?
I've been separated since 2014, and
geez.
I know that because it was just after we separated, I went to LA and trained with Eddie over there, and that was in the lead up to his match against Hoyler for Metamoris 3. And but. It happened, and look, I'd like to think that it worked out for the best for all the parties involved. I mean, she's engaged to get married now to a guy. I've got my partner. We've just had a baby, so I mean, we've both moved on, and I'd love for us to all be friends and that, as amicable as you can be.
Were you good?
Me, yes, yeah, I was.
I mean, you do strike me as a good guy.
Yeah, look, it was more of a personality clash between the two of us, and there was a lot of stress put on it by having the children and having different ideas of how to raise them.
Because you're all like, vegan, make them pray.
Oh, no.
Do yoga in the morning.
Back then, I wasn't even. I do take my kids to yoga. I think it's great for children. You get them to that Friday afternoon session, and that just calms them down for the weekend. It's a great way to. You don't want a kid after a week of school, and you get them on Friday afternoon, and you pick them up from school, and they are a nightmare. You take them to yoga. It's an hour out of their day. It calms them. It brings the yin and the yang together.
Ah, jeez.
But yeah, so we separated, blah, blah, blah. And so she's got her partner, who actually turned small town syndrome once again.
Turns out to be your brother.
No, he used to be really good friends with my now partner.
Oh.
But now they don't
How
talk
good friends?
No, just friends. Like, just friends. But
sure?
Yeah. So, yeah. But, I mean, it's small town. It's not that small town.
Hey, we don't even want to go into Jake's story.
Yeah. That's it. Look, he can come over and tell that one. But yeah, so I went through a lot of a personality change, and I started to be a lot healthier, both mentally and physically, and with what I put into my body and things like that.
Do you reckon that stuff, what do you reckon fell? Do you reckon the marriage fell and then you went, I'm going to look after myself? Or do you reckon, like, if you were looking after yourself, the marriage would have been better?
I was fit during the last 3 or 4 years of my marriage. When I got married, like you look at photos of when I got married, and I was a big dude.
Yeah.
Still, like I'd lost a lot of weight, but I was still a pretty big dude. And I was a lot fitter by the time when we finished up.
Yeah, most couples are, because you're getting ready.
Getting ready to part?
You're getting ready to part.
No,
Everyone knows this. If your wife or girlfriend is like starting to look fit, she's going to leave you.
Yeah, but look, I joke about it. It is sad that it ended up that way, because at the end of the day, we have 3 kids together, and no kid wants to go through that separation thing. Like, it was kind of hard on them.
Yeah, it would be, but it's so much better now, at least.
Oh, 100%. Like, there's no arguing and that kind of stuff.
As long as you got a mum and a dad.
Exactly.
Some people have 2 mums.
Now they're basically got a mum and a dad and a stepmom and a stepdad, so they got 4 people who care about them.
Or I got a friend that's got a mum, a dad, a stepmom, and another stepmom. So she's got 3 mums and 1 dad.
Once again, I can't do that math. It's
like the wife left the husband for a woman.
Yep.
And then the dad got a new woman. So now it's 3 mums, 1 dad.
And they've got boys or girls?
1 boy.
1 boy. He's gonna need some male influence in his life.
Oh, everyone be like, I banged your mum. He'd be like, which one?
Yeah. It's going down a dark path now.
Because this will determine the level of how angry I am. Your real one. Oh, no.
I'm going to get this back on board. You're meant to be the host, and I'm going to bring it back on board.
I'm not normally allowed to just go off track.
Go wherever you want. Michael doesn't allow this in the morning?
No, he does not. So what made you get into the jiu-jitsu side of it?
Yeah, so I found jiu-jitsu, and I found a judo and a Japanese jiu-jitsu school in Mount Gambier.
So when was that? Was that when you were 18? Or
no,
was that...
this was like when I was 28.
So you didn't do any... when you saw that first UFC video... You didn't do anything with it.
I hired every UFC video there was, and I watched it, and I was obsessed by it. But no, I didn't know how to get into it. I didn't know how to get into fighting or anything like that. And it was just eventually I found this school, and
it's not like it is now. Like there was nothing back then.
No one knew what I was talking
about. There was
about.
like 3 gyms in Perth, a capital city. So let alone here.
I was making my friends watch these pay-per-views. The first one was Tito versus Ken 1. And it was like UFC 40. And I was like, we have to get this main event. And so
how did you even do that? Was it available?
Yeah, it was on main event. It was on All-Star main event. It was the first UFC they ever showed. So I made him get that, and I was obsessed with it. So I went to this Japanese jiu-jitsu school, and I was wearing a gi, and I was learning how to do wrist locks and knife defense and all this kind of stuff that I now pay out. That's why I'm allowed to, because I've done it.
That's why I pay out karate.
Yeah,
I've done it.
I know it's Fugazi, so
I
can. I've seen the
I
light.
know the rules.
So I did this for a while, and I thought, this isn't exactly what I want to do. And I think the turning point was I was getting my judo brown belt, and I went to the grading in Adelaide, and they took my money, and they took everyone else's money. And then this one guy that I was partnered with, because he was a guy from Adelaide, he couldn't do any of the moves, but he paid his money, so he got his upgrade. I think he went from blue to green or something like that. And I was like, this is too much. So I went to... I looked online, and I'd kind of gravitated through instructionals to Eddie Bravo's style of jiu-jitsu.
It does look fun. Like
it's a pretty style.
Like if no one's ever done it before or anything, you Google jiu-jitsu or whatever, and you go look at 10th Planet Eddie Bravo. It looks like a fun way to do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it does.
Especially when we put in the old little smoky smoke, and you just chill. Because a lot of people with sport, like when you think about basketball, you're not really allowed to smoke weed or chill out when you play that small.
99% of the NBA is high when they're playing.
No, that's what I mean. But it's like it's all there in anything.
Oh, they just don't admit it?
Yeah, but like in 10th Planet style like jiu-jitsu, for some reason, no-gi jiu-jitsu, it's just like, get high, then roll.
Well, I think Eddie was a big proponent of that. He's a massive proponent for marijuana, and he's been an advocate for it for years. He was the guy who got Joe Rogan into it. So
how did 10th... Without taking 4 hours to explain it, what's the 10th Planet?
The Cliff Notes?
How did it start?
He was a traditional jiu-jitsu guy under John Jock Machado.
Yep.
And
This is getting really jiu-jitsu nerdy, guys, so you might have to Google this shit.
I'm 100% jiu-jitsu nerd. Like, we could go off on a complete tangent here. He went to Abu Dhabi, which is like the Olympics for submission grappling.
Yep.
And he competed against Royler Gracie, who was one of the Gracie families who invented Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
And he'd never even had a point scored against him in these Abu Dhabi competitions. He was the Michael Jordan, and Eddie tapped him in their match, and he was a brown belt at the time, and he used his kind of different style of grabbing his leg and using it as an extra limb and all this kind of stuff. And so he exploded. And as soon as he got his black belt, he opened up his school and he taught it without the gi, which is the pajamas that a lot of traditional martial arts wear and even Brazilian jiu-jitsu wear.
Why did he do that?
He was a massive UFC fan. That's how he got into Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and he could see that Brazilian jiu-jitsu wasn't working in UFC.
The whole thing is always like that. They used to say, train to get better at MMA jiu-jitsu or no-gi jiu-jitsu, you have to train in the gi.
Yeah.
It was always the thing. And that's where the kind of karate aspect of like the tradition, the honor,
of it, yeah.
and the...
Look, I do agree with certain aspects. If you train in a gi, you have to be so cautious when it comes to defense because there's so much to grab onto. There's so much clothing that they can hold you with. So one slip up and it's all over.
Yeah.
No-gi submission grappling is a lot more quick-paced, more sport-orientated because
like roll with a guy with no shirt on.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
You're
just
slipping all over the place.
Yeah.
You really got to use squeezes instead of grips. And so he started that style, and he was like the black sheep of the Brazilian jiu-jitsu family because he's shunning tradition of not wearing the gi. And he started his own style, which was based for MMA. So that's why there's a lot of clinch on the leg to hold the opponent down so you can't get punched and things like that.
Yeah.
And I gravitated towards that style. I happened to look him up one day. I was sitting at work, and as you do, you go on Google and you look up your favorite things. At that time, I think it was Sherdog. And I went to Eddie Bravo's website, and then I saw 10th Planet Melbourne, and I was like, oh, there's a 10th Planet Melbourne. I was sure it was going to be like Melbourne in Canada or America or something like that. It was 10th Planet Melbourne, Australia. So I rang the coach up there, Frank Barca, and I said, look, can I come train? So I drove over to Melbourne.
What was Frank? How many years into training was Frank then?
Frank was only a blue belt at this stage.
Jeez.
Yeah. This is back in 2008. I think
you're going to be my Frank.
Yeah. So I was, he went over and trained with Eddie, and he came back and he opened an affiliate. He passed all the credentials for that. He was only a blue belt at the time, and there was black belts all around him.
Did you know my coach, Steve Kennedy, was there when Frank got his black belt?
I was also there. I met Steve that day.
That
was the first and only time I've ever met him, yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. I was there. There was, I think there was probably 7 black belts on hand at that day, and he was one of them. I can't remember who the other guys were.
Did you know he was considering being affiliated with 10th Planet.
At that stage?
He was going to make his gym 10th Planet. And this is, in his words, not mine, there was too much hugging and too many sob stories. He said he thought it was, in his words, a little gay. And so he didn't want to do 10th Planet affiliates. So
but he's very MMA based.
Oh, he's an absolute bully. Great guy, but he's where I got all my face crushers and like can openers and forearms in the head. He's just an MMA old school wrestler style.
So there's no high-fiving and butt slaps at his gym, or you don't hug each other after you finish rolling?
Nah, not really.
There's no love?
I mean, we're still like, we all act a little gay sometimes, as we all do. But he's... Yeah, there's a lot of like screenshots in our group chat of other gyms. Like it's a real like,
I gotcha,
because they're from Fitness and Fight Centre in Perth in Northbridge, which was a very stabby place, and it was all that old school MMA style. Look, it ended up turning into a Comanchero's bikie clubhouse. Like it was a tough area. Yeah, it was a tough area, and that. So they've always kind of gone that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was there when Frank got his black belt, which I found.
So why was he there then?
Exactly that.
Because he was thinking about it.
Yeah, because I think he's met Eddie. He met Eddie a couple of times, and he was like, because he thought if he went to Perth, if he started gym in Perth, because he was kind of bouncing around other gyms, just training there, and he went, I hate all these other gyms. I want to run it myself.
Yeah.
But he said if he could get like a 10th Planet,
it's like a marketing play.
Yeah. And he heavily thought about it, which is a smart way to do it because, like you said, you Googled 10th Planet.
Exactly.
You found Frank.
Yeah.
If it was Frank's Jiu-Jitsu, you wouldn't have gone to Frank's Jiu-Jitsu.
Frank's Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, like why would I do that?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a funny story too. So Frank was the blue belt there at the time in
He was
Melbourne.
the blue belt there at the time, so I went and trained with him, and I continued making trips over there probably once a month, twice a month, something like that.
So what did you just train there once a month and then like came back and then it was still doing like the judo stuff?
Yeah,
or?
But I was kind of teaching on the side. In the meantime, the guy who ran the jiu-jitsu and judo school, he killed himself. So
Whoa.
Yeah, so
all right.
There was 3 of us that kind of took over the running of the school.
Did you find Frank's gym 10th Planet beforehand or after?
Yeah. So this is beforehand. So I'd been learning a little bit of like no-gi.
Are those
jiu-jitsu.
other 2 guys around?
One's still training in like the Japanese jiu-jitsu style.
Yeah.
One of them is in jail for taking advantage of a child, a younger girl, while he was a preacher at a school.
All right.
He also fleeced us of $6,000.
It's also quite funny because you viciously rip on Japanese jiu-jitsu and you posted something about preachers the other day. So it's all making sense.
Look, my kids unfortunately go to a Catholic school because my ex-partner, her family's into the Catholic style of thing. But even the other day, I had to go to the church. We're getting back into political stuff now. I had to go to the church.
Religion.
Because it's all tied in. And he was singing in the choir. Like I said, he's a bit of an artist, so he put his hand up to sing in the choir. So I went and did the right thing, and I watched. And during the sermon, the priest is sitting up the front, and he 100% looks at the crowd, and he says, "We need to pray for the Archbishop during these troubling times."
Oh, no.
There was no talk about any of the victims.
Who's obviously is it on trial, or what's his...
So he's on trial for covering it up, and he just came out today or yesterday, and he was like, "Oh, we're not going to change the way we do things. So if a priest comes to us and says that they've touched a child, we're still going to keep it a secret because we don't think that that's got anything to do with the actual fact that children are getting touched. The fact that we keep it a secret." I know, it's unbelievable.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Why is it just let them touch girls? Like, let them, like, older girls that like them too. I probably should have stated that a little bit better.
Clear it up a little bit.
But like, I don't know. Like, do you get into being a priest and then you like boys? Or do you like boys so you become a priest? Like, what?
Look, we could go down the conspiracy theory thing and say that it's like all one big pedophile ring.
Let's do it. Why?
Why would you do it? I think a lot of people do have faith. And they do believe in God and they do believe in their religion and they think that is the way the world was created and that we're only like 4,000 years old or whatever it is and all this kind of stuff. And so 100% they think I'm going to get into this for the right reasons.
Yeah.
You cannot take a male and for 15 years of his life say you cannot have sex. Whether it's he's straight or homosexual.
No, they're just jerking. They don't even let jerk it.
No, well, I think they have to say sorry or they get whipped or something if they do that. But
I do that while I'm...
You get whipped? That's why you got choked out the other day, isn't it?
So they get into it. It's weird. So they get into it for faith, right? So they get into it because obviously a higher purpose. Everyone wants a meaning in life and all that sort of stuff.
I think a lot of people use it as... we were talking about before, as their safety net. Like when things go wrong, it's something to fall back on, or if things go right, that's the reason why. And they don't have as much faith in themselves.
Yeah, I reckon this is. I throw out a lot of like crazy things, and Michael's a real facts guy on my radio show because we talk a lot off air. Like we actually have a way better podcast than we do a radio show because we talk just about like shit like this. Yeah, and we're quiet. It's way more entertaining.
Look, to be honest, man, I think this is the way to do it.
Oh, without a doubt. But
you don't have the ads. You don't have to worry about sponsors telling you what you can and can't
say. The difference is I don't make money doing this, and they throw a lot of money at me to do the other thing.
Am I not getting paid to do this?
You are, or with the gift of joy of doing this. I'm
just glad you didn't say friendship. I would have walked out the door.
I even made you buy me a coffee. So if anything, you're down money. But
true.
This is the thing: is I reckon religion was started like that whole like heaven and that better place. I reckon was started because at the time people were living in a shitty place. So like kids in Africa, third world Africa, heaven. Shit, yeah, you want to work for heaven. Like, you want a better place. Where I think we are heaven. Like, Australia is heaven to them.
It's like, dude, I went to Father's Day breakfast at my kid's school, and they had a video. And they had like the thing where the kids are like, "Oh, what are you thankful for?" and "What's your dad do?" and all this kind of stuff. And there was
he strangles people.
There was this one. Oh, my kids don't get interviewed. But there was this one girl there, and she was older. She was in her teens, and she was a refugee.
All right.
And they were like, "Oh, why is your dad special to you?" And she was like, "Oh, because my father took us out of our war-torn country and brought us to Australia to live." And I was like, wow, that kind of puts everything in perspective. Yeah. Instead of, oh, my dad, he listens to me when I talk, and my dad takes me to sport on the weekend and stuff like that.
That's what I mean. I reckon that sort of like heaven is really good if you live in a third world country because you're like, there's got to be something better and all that sort of stuff. However, I think when we do it here, everyone's so quick to get onto that the higher world, the heaven. I'm like, what's wrong with here?
Yeah.
Like, we got fast internet. We got like where
You're
you want to
making
be.
all your decisions based on tomorrow instead of making the best of what you've got here.
And it's like I'm all for like thinking in the future and planning because that's how you don't become